Alright folks, we're in the process of changing out a wheel bearing. So first thing that you're going to want to do is take off your caliper and your caliper bracket. You'll have 2 screws to take out of your caliper to remove that. Then you'll have another 2 screws to take off of your caliper bracket. So the screw that goes on your caliper will have one at the bottom and there'll be one at the top that you got to remove from the caliper first. So once you have those screws out, the next thing you're going to want to do is take out the 2 screws that go to your caliper bracket itself. We'll show you that in a minute. Alright folks, now that we have the caliper off, the next thing that we're about to do is go ahead on and break loose the nut that's on the actual axle itself. We took a screwdriver and stuck it inside the actual rotor and let it lean up against the caliper bracket. That way we can get some leverage as we break the actual nut that's on the axle itself. So we're doing that right now. We're using a breaker bar to break it. In the beginning, we actually put some oil on it too to kind of hopefully make it come off a little easier once we break it. Alright, so now we're finished taking off the bolt on the axle itself. Alright, so we got the actual bolt coming off.
Stop and come back to our tire rod.
Now, go back over here. Once you get that off, actually go ahead and wait on taking off your caliper bracket. Come over to your tire rod end and remove that. And so now we're removing the tire rod end. Basically it's just one screw you would take out the bottom. Don't take it all the way off. Kind of let it hang at the bottom so you could take like a sledgehammer or hammer and knock it up. The reason you don't want to take it all the way off, because when you're hitting it to knock it up, you can damage the actual screw itself that goes to your tire rod end. You see how we hit the, actually you can hit the frame of it too, and not actually on the screw itself. Now what you want to do is pull out the lower tire rod out the bottom. Go ahead and put that nut back on it so you don't lose it. And once you have that done, now what you want to do is come around here to the other side, and now you want to take out your actual caliper bracket, which will be 2 screws.
How much easier that makes?
You'll have one at the bottom and one at the top.
See how much easier?
So that's the order that you kind of want to do. So now that you have that loose, next what you want to do is just unloosen the rest of the way for your for your caliper bracket and pull that bracket off. That's what we're doing now. Alright, so once you got the caliper bracket off, next what you want to do is go ahead and remove your rotor. Just pull your rotor straight off. Like that, it'll come straight off. And once you have that off,
see what size nuts.
Now what you want to do is find out what size nuts that you actually, what size socket set that you need to remove the screws from off of your wheel bearing. You'll have 1 screw at the bottom. Normally it's about 3 screws you'll have in it. You'll have 1 right here, 1 right there, and you'll have 1 on the other side. This one happens to be a size 15. So you'll probably need a size 15 socket to actually remove your wheel bearing. So we're doing that now. Now we're coming to the top one.
This process doesn't take long at all. Once you remove your tire rod and your caliper bracket, you take your 3 bolts, and you disconnect your ABS and start tapping it out.
And once you get those 2 bolts out the other side, screws out the other side of the bearing, come on up to the top and go ahead and remove your ABS line. So then what you're going to want to do is actually turn the wheel bearing the other way so you can get the other screw that's on the other side. You'll have 1 more screw that's right there you want to take out. So in total you'll have 3 screws that you have to remove to be able to remove your wheel bearing. So now that we have that one out, Next what we're going to do is just hit it like that, and there you go, it comes straight out. The ABS line will be connected to it. So there's your wheel bearing, which was bad. A lot of times your wheel bearings are bad, it'll be making like a roaring noise, and you'll hear that tells you that it's bad. It'll make like a regular truck or car sound like a big truck or something, like a diesel or something. Alright, so now what we're going to do, and that right here is your actual wheel bearing that we just removed, which fits right in here. So now we're about to take our new wheel bearing and go ahead and put it back in. It's basically the reverse process. Alright, we're about to put on our new wheel bearing. You want to make sure that your ABS line is pointing up. You want to have it going up into that gap.
Top.
Yeah, like that, into that top. So now that you're about to put your wheel bearing back in, take your ABS line, stick it up through that gap, and then take the wheel bearing and put it back into the 3 holes that you have. Alright, so we're in the process now of putting back the 3 screws that we took out to actually hold your wheel bearing in. Alright, so now we got the new wheel bearing in. We put back on the actual nut that goes on the axle. We plug back up our ABS line. Now we just put our rotor back on. Now what we're going to do next is go ahead and put on our caliper bracket. Put that bracket back on. Once we get that bracket back on, then we're going to go ahead on and put back on our caliper itself. Then we go around to the other side and go ahead and reconnect back our outer tire rod. And make sure you put the pins back in and make sure everything's secured. And once you get that done, pretty much you'll be done putting on your wheel bearing. A job like this may take you maybe 45 minutes to an hour, as long as you have the right tools. So now we're in the process of putting back on our caliper bracket, and next we'll be putting back on our caliper with our brake pads. And then lastly, we'll be putting back on our outer tire rod that we took off. Alright, so basically we got everything back on. So lastly what we're going to do is go ahead on and put back in the outer tire rod, which is right here, which we're putting back in right here. Tighten that back up, put our pin back in, and then we're done. Alright, thanks. Once again, this is how you would put on a wheel bearing.